Howdy, Space Rangers, Captain Phoenix here. Today we're back with every book Inaccuracy in the Lord of the Rings of Power, Season 2, Episode 6, Where Is He? Sorry I'm a bit late with this video, I got sick earlier this week, so while the script was done, my voice was absolutely dead and I could not record. So my bad guys, but do not worry, we still have a video this week and I will try to get the video for Episode 7 up as soon as possible before any complications like that happen again. Of course, if you know me, you know this series. If you do not, go watch the last couple of videos for context. If you just want to watch this video, welcome. Here's the criteria for what I'm going to be doing in this video's breakdown slash review. I'm pointing out the book inaccuracies that the Rings of Power has to the Silmarillion, and of course I'll be pointing some accuracies along the way because it's also important to give credit while also giving criticism. There will be no book spoilers in this video. Of course there will be episode spoilers for the episode in question, obviously, but as for future book events that have not yet happened in the show, I will not be talking about those. I'll probably be making some light references to them and whatnot. I will also only be talking about and referencing the Silmarillion because it is the only Lord of the Rings book I've read connected to this show. Therefore, I will not be talking about like lost tales of anything that happens to Fellowship of the Ring or things like that. And of course, an important one to you guys in the comments, no excessive bashing of this show yet until the finale. The finale is next week, guys. By that time, the floodgates will be open. Pour out all your hate and venom on this show as much as you want, because then we have the full picture. As of now, please keep the comments civil. If there's something you like, mention it. If there's something you don't like, mention it as well. However, please let us not get on each other's throats about the politics behind this whole thing. We're just here to have a good time and to talk about what details were and were not included from the books. And of course, as always, huge shout out and thanks to Nerd of the Rings. Of course, as I've said in this video and many videos in the past in this series, I get all my clips from him. Usually like slideshows, his videos, or like, montages, the episode clips to make his own breakdown videos. And I'm not doing the same thing he does. I'm not breaking down the episode, so I'm not really stealing his content. I'm also just pointing out the inaccuracies from the book, something he doesn't do in his channel. Though, as I mentioned before, I do use his footage. So again, Nerd of the Rings, if by chance you do see this video, hi, how you doing? Please don't take me down. But at the same time, thank you for the footage. And of course, I will link his channel down in the description below. And of course, I'd be remiss if I also didn't add this last point in, which kind of goes hand in hand with the last point as well, with the previous point as well. That being, guys, just remember, just because a change has been made does not mean it's bad. Again, just because something is inaccurate from the books doesn't mean that the whole show is bad. It just means that the creators interpreted the text differently or had different plans for their vision. Without further ado, let's get into it.
Rings for the elven kings under the sky.
This morning, he appeared to be carrying a message. Bury him. Show this to no one.
Shall I inform Lord Colorblind?
No. He has asked me to see to it that no one is permitted to disturb him. Not even the Smiths.
In the books, Celebrimbor already knew of the siege that was coming. As mentioned in a previous video, Sauron was the one who originally led the siege, not Adar. In the Silmarillion, Sauron demanded for all 19 rings to be handed to him, since he had a part in making them. Celebrimbor refused, and that is what led to Sauron sieging the realm. The march and the actual siege itself lasted 2 years. There was no need to hide it from him to spring a surprise attack.
Lord God's crown. I was told.
There are many stories of what happened after the Silmarils were pried from its sittings. But I was there when Sauron refired it to fit himself. I was there when he kneeled to be crowned.
I am so glad Adar added the fact that Sauron retooled the crown for himself, because that is not Morgoth's crown. Morgoth's crown was said to be a large item made to hold the 3 Silmarils. Does this tiny thing look like it can even hold 1 gem? And it doesn't get much better. In the Silmarillion, they say this about Morgoth's crown once he's defeated. So this comes from the chapter of the Voyage of Erendil and the War of Wrath. This is after Morgoth's armies have been defeated and the Valar are now at his doorstep. He fled into the deepest of his minds and sued for peace and pardon, but his feet were hewn from under him, and he was hurled upon his face. Then he was bound with the chain Anganyo, which he had worn aforetime, and his iron crown he beat into a collar for his neck, and his head was bowed upon his knees. And the 2 Silmarils, which remained to Morgoth, were taken from his crown, and they shone unsullied beneath the sky, and Eowyn took them and guarded them. So, beat into a collar suggests that it was used as a neck brace. How did you retool the crown, Sauron? So in the show, did Sauron scoop up the iron scraps that were not part of the collar to forge his own crown? And at that point, why not just make your own crown from scratch?
If it is, then perhaps together this crown and your rings would be powerful enough to truly destroy Sauron forever.
I'm not a huge fan of the crown being a MacGuffin to beat Sauron, but hey, I'm not against it. I've seen worse from other adaptations.
Outlawry. Incitement of a violent conflagration that led to loss of life.
As much as I love this scene, Elendil was never put on trial in the books. This whole subplot never happened. I mentioned in the previous vid that the rings enhance the abilities of the wearer. Dwarven super strength was not one of them.
Do you forsake all earthly authority and accept the judgment of the Valar? I accept their judgment. Throw him in!
There is no mention of the faithful or any Númenórean customs in general, or criminals being tried by a giant sea creature in the books. The sea worm isn't mentioned in the Silmarillion, and the Valar usually don't judge the men for their crimes, unless they're already dead, as men and elves are not theirs to judge. There's a reason why they're referred to as the children of Iluvatar. This whole subplot and sequence is non-existent in the books.
You speak lies, hoping I will reveal something.
You have already revealed everything I hoped you would, and more.
I am glad that Ada does seem to go back on wanting an alliance. It would have been hella awkward to see the orcs teaming up with elves.
I give you my oath, upon my immortal being, when the history of this age is written, the Silmarils, well, they will merit little more than a whisper. And your rings, the rings of power, they will be deemed the most precious creations in all Middle-earth.
This falls in line with Celebrimbor's desires and characterization in the books. As I've said previously, he wanted to be respected and leave a legacy the same way his grandfather Fëanor did. No notes here. I love this sequence. This is Sauron's whole character, watching the enemy he hates most in the moment fall by whatever means necessary. I like how this scene reminds us that no, he's not an elf or a good guy. He is tired and irritated on being on his best behavior around these inferior elves, and it is time to see them fall. I am so excited to see him reclaim control of the orcs in the next couple episodes. This scene perfectly represents how much of a sadist Sauron is, and how he really enjoys getting off to seeing his enemies fall. Don't believe me? Here he is at the fall of Númenor. This of course comes from the Akallabeth at the fall of Númenor, and Sauron, sitting in his black seat in the midst of the temple, had laughed when he heard the trumpets of Ar-Pharazôn sounding for battle. And again, he had laughed when he heard the thunder of the storm. And a third time, even as he laughed at his own thought, thinking what he would do now in the world, being rid of the Edain forever. He was taken in the midst of his mirth, and his seat and his temple fell into the abyss. But Sauron was not of mortal flesh, and though he was robbed now of that shape, in which he had wrought so great an evil, so that he could never again appear fair to the eyes of men, yet his spirit arose out of the deep, and passed as a shadow and a black wind over the sea, and came back to Middle-earth, and to Mordor, that was his home. This man's is petty. This is while he's still on the island. He doesn't give a damn. And as usual, it is time for my general thoughts. I actually thought this was better than episode 5 in a lot of aspects. This felt like a true lead off to the finale, though you could tell they were still dragging their feet in a lot of areas. There were only like 2 rune scenes this time, one for Nori and the other for the wizard. You could cut them out and nothing would change. I think the show just wanted to remind us that they exist. However, despite how little they feature, I do have a lot of problems with the rune stuff. First, let's start off with the stranger. Can you just come out already and spit out that he's Gandalf? They make a reference to his line in Fellowship of the Ring about how most don't deserve death, and again, a large focus on his staff. They took a lesson from the movies about mercy and turned it into a trolley problem for the greater good. Since When? Since when was that line supposed to be used for that? I also really don't like Tom Bombadil in this episode. I haven't read the main trilogy, but from what I've gathered, Tom is a wacky character who just does what is right, who just does what is right, looking out for the little guy and whatnot. Can someone explain why he's acting like Yoda from Star Wars? And that's the funny thing. A lot of people say that this subplot reminds them of Yoda from Empire Strikes Back. For me, it reminds me more of Aang and his like relationship with Guru Patik. And it's like he's also been given the same choice of, oh, become the best you can be, or go save your friends. And again, down to Tom Bombadil speaking in weird phrases that aren't all that whimsical, and he even gives the wizard an ultimatum. He brandishes his outfit like a Marvel character showing off their comic accurate costume, despite it not even being book accurate. Sorry Tom, I love your song, but I wasn't feeling you this episode. Also, where were the horsemen of the Dark Wizard? Didn't we see them ride to Tom's house in the previous episode? As for the half-woods, what is wrong with the leader one, Gund? I get not wanting to leave your home because you're tied to it, but there's no reason for you to stay. It can't be to hide since the wizard and his goons know where you live, and you're not planning on fighting back. So, why stay? Are you planning to kill your whole community? Why don't you stay and they leave then? Even though it's not in the episode much, Rune really is the worst part of this season, and it drags it down so much. And of course, as many people have mentioned before, it kills the pacing, which is bad because this show was already infamous for having disgusting pacing. Alright, on the positive side of things, this show continues to shine with Sauron's deception. It was a bit rocky at first, but I really do think the writers have found their footing on how they want to deal with Anatar, and I love the 4D chess he's playing with the other characters. And on the other end of the moral spectrum, I'm officially in love with Elendil. He is such a fantasy hero. His moral compass to stand and do what's right in the face of adversity, despite all the world being against him, just melts my heart. He truly felt like a Tolkienian hero in this episode. The Numenor stuff has really picked up this season and you can feel it. Back to the silly stuff, why are the dwarf miners scared of bats? How and why is Disa able to control the bats? Make that make sense. Anyway, overall, it's a really strong episode with a lot of silly stuff peppered in. I'm very interested to see how this will all close and how we'll get to big plot points like Sauron taking control of the elves, him forging the wand, and of course the creme de la creme, Banner Boy. If you don't know what Banner Boy is, you haven't read the books, and I'm not gonna spoil it for you. But yeah. We most likely won't get the forging of the wand this season. This will probably be like a big thing next season. But hey, whatever. Anyways, guys, that's gonna be all for today. Thank you so very much for watching. Again, sorry for the late video and of course, the somewhat subpar video quality. I'll try to improve on it going forward, and I'll try my best to be better, of course. But yeah, filming is just a very hard thing these days. Regardless, thank you so very much for watching. Be sure to like if you like, subscribe if you haven't already, hit the notification bell to be part of the team. Again, thank you so very much for watching, guys. I've been Captain Phoenix, and with that, I will see you in another universe. Goodbye, my Rangers, and watch the other videos in this series.